my wife was like, kicked me out of the house. She's like, you're driving yourself and me, by the way, insane. You've just got to go somewhere and be away from home and go and be an artist for a few days. So I went to Istanbul on my way to Jerusalem, and I sat in a cafe for 3 days and drank coffee and smoked cigars and wrote poetry like a prick.
Hello, beautiful human. I'm Zach. That is Dan. And we have 3 individuals who have won Grammys, sold millions upon millions of records, have revitalized a whole genre of music. Please welcome to the studio, London indie folk trio, Mumford Sons.
Yo!
Hey.
What a lovely introduction.
Lovely introduction. Short and
welcome.
sweet.
Yeah.
Hit all the main points. You've done this before, haven't you, mate?
A few times.
Yeah.
No, but genuinely, like it's not every day that we get to talk to individuals who have released timeless records into this world, right? Like we're talking to artists at all stages of their career, but like not every day is it that we're talking to people who have really released timeless records, who have genuinely revitalized an entire genre. Like I had no idea the impact. Just in like, let's talk about like the sales of guitars back in the year 2012. Like what the fuck?
Let's talk about that.
I mean, that's
We do get a commission on guitars as well,
Yeah.
so it's been great.
no, but genuinely, like as you get into the studio as the 3 of you for the first time since 2018, does any of that weigh in?
No, I feel like we had very little to do with that. I think I think we were part of a moment where people were enjoying seeing and believing that some music was made with instruments that you could sort of feel the velocity or feel the intensity of like how hard you play the instrument compared to the sound that came out of the speakers. Because it was also like we came up at a time with amazing EDM artists that were taking over the world.
It's true.
And I felt like there were some people who appreciated hearing, and I don't think one's better than the other. It's just that what we were doing at that moment in amongst a community of lots of other artists was just a thing. And I don't think we take any credit for any kind of movement, or we were just in the right place at the right time, and we said yes to every show we could. And we played really hard and we made records, and that's why we're doing this again, because we just love it.
What is the similarities to the album that we're going to talk about today and to that first era of music? Is there anything that remains the same throughout your process?
Yeah, I think the core ingredients remain. The mindset and the approach to songs generally are autobiographical, or at least inspired by real events. And we try and play the songs together in a way that feels dynamic. Like we don't necessarily write with live shows in mind, but we've played so many shows, it's impossible to not kind of consider the influence of making something feel intimate and focus on a moment, and then being able to just blow the roof off something. So it's a dynamic record. It has acoustic instruments, and they're like human stories. So in that sense, not all music follows that formula, I guess. So in that sense, it is us.
You guys, it's very interesting. Like you said something about like the time at which your music started emerging into the mainstream, right? It was like this moment of like, I mean, can you just talk about the London music scene at that time? Because it was dance, and that was making its way over to in America. And I remember being in radio at the time, and it was very much of one sound thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything was so heavily dance leaning. But there is something, you broke out because of the live instruments, but there is something to the tempo of your records and the mixed with the honesty, right?
It was interesting. I feel eternally grateful for the fact that I bumped into these lads, because I wasn't in London. I was moving around a bit, and moved to London with a very sort of clear intention to find like-minded music makers. And these were some of the first lads I met. And I couldn't believe the alignment of interest in terms of the sound that we wanted to create. And then Ben was running a night called Communion, which was a bit of a hub. There were other similar nights. And there was just a lot of people around, you know, supporting each other. And the sound that was being made, everyone was sort of influencing each other, playing in each other's bands. That's really how we started this band. And it was exciting, and it was essentially drinking music. It was music to like drink beer, and we were like a pub band for the larger part. And a lot of the sort of tempo and intensity of the music really came from the fact that we were playing very analog instruments in quite noisy rooms. So we
had to break through.
Yeah, it's it was sort of born out of that a little bit, and I guess that's still in our DNA because that's just sort of the way we love to play.
I think we're a real product of our time as well, because like Ted was saying, we grew up in bars and speakeasies, really, like where if you had an acoustic guitar and you could play a song, you were welcome on the stage. Yeah. And if it was good, you were asked to play another one. It was kind of like that Greenwich Village type scene. And then when we broke out of that and started going on tour around the UK, we were really influenced by dance music. So we set our BPMs we set them between 120 and 140.
Genius, because like in a mode where like any record executive at the time would go like, nobody wants to play a mid-tempo record. Like it's the hardest thing to sell. Yeah. Like you literally match the
and we were listening to mid-tempo records. Like I was listening to a lot of like Midlake and Laura Marling and Noah and the Whale, Johnny Flynn, the Sussex Wit. But I also loved pop music and dance music, and frequency-wise, we had the low end covered with the bass and the kick drum right at the bottom. We had the high end covered with acoustic, guitar, banjo, tambourine right at the top. So we had this range of frequency that we were covering. We had all we needed really, and everything's so percussive, including the piano, that all of us would be hitting something at the same time, roughly in time. And then our show started feeling like dance parties, which we still chase. We still love that feeling of getting a group of people, however big it is, to bounce is the most amazing feeling in the world. And then getting them all to shut the fuck up and listen to a song with just an acoustic guitar. So that's just in our DNA, and that's on this record on Rushmere. There's some songs where it's literally just us and a guitar and a piano and a bass in one room. We recorded it in one take, and then there's some songs that like hit a bit harder and have four on the floor, and we love it.
How do you balance those songs in particular with this idea of like keeping like storytelling, right? Like how does it start with a lyric? Does it start with you guys having an idea like sonically?
Normally starts with the melody, I think, for us at least. Recently, it changes on each record. Last record we wrote, like a lot of it we wrote sat around a computer, so it felt different, And then we translate it into instruments. This record was sat around a piano, really, and a guitar, and so we wrote from that, and then melody normally comes first, and then you match lyric to that.
How did you make your first two albums?
Round a guitar or a piano, yeah.
Why do you choose to get around a computer in 2018?
Well, we were around an electric guitar amplifier in 2015 for Wilder Mind, because we just wanted to be around electric guitars more. And then with Delta, we were writing more in the box, which was great for that record and a different way of doing things. And we think we've got loads more records in us, so I'm sure we'll change the approach on each one.
Yeah, I'd also say that we don't believe that there is a perfect way to do anything. Just go with, let the whole process evolve and don't get stuck. So we like trying new things. We like trying new instruments and methods and producers and
that's what being in a band is finding those moments of common interest and energy and saying like, let's go down this path together. And then one of us might be like, what about this? And then either the other two will be like, cool. Or they'll be like, no, actually, we need to come back this way a bit. And we had a bit of that on this record. And I think that's what makes it greater than the sum of its parts, really. And that's the magic of being in a band, I think, is that you keep each other accountable. You can lead each other, but also you can bring each other home to where home base is. And then we come up eventually with this 10-song collection.
Bigger than the sum of its parts thing that I find so fascinating about being in the band, though, because in terms of the process and whatever direction or method we've chosen to make the record, I think when we know it's the right thing, that's suddenly when it becomes bigger than the sum of its parts. There's this sort of weird magic of collaboration, I think, in any band. When you're doing the right thing, the volume just seems to grow creatively. It sort of just expands.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but
it is interesting, like this idea that like, yeah, bigger than the sum of its parts, but also like this idea that like you can't ever forget where you guys come from because there's always going to be somebody there to remind you. So no matter what you're doing, like the root of it will always be Mumford and Sons. Does that make sense?
I think that's a great point and something that I wrestle with quite a lot, and perhaps have wrestled with maybe in a more negative way historically and feel more at peace with now than ever. And there was like a moment when we got back together in 2023 to start writing songs that some of them have made it onto this album. It was like not being bashful or apologetic about the amazing life that we've been afforded to get to do this. It's like an amazing thing. But you have got this waypoint that was established when we were like 19.
Yeah.
And that waypoint, like honestly, I'll go and like socially go and meet someone new at a party, and within a couple of minutes it's like, so what do you do? And you just mention what you do, and they're like, they completely have you made in that one moment. Whereas like, I'm still finding out about them. Yeah. I'm like learning about what they do for a living and what they're interested in, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in a band called Mumford and Sons now. Oh yeah, like done. Put you in a box.
Gotcha. Yeah, they know.
And that's but
blessing and a curse.
It's a blessing and a curse. I think I'm at this point, I'm like really proud of that. But there have been times in the past where I've been like, Is that the entirety of my personality for the rest of my life? And is that scary to be so defined at such a young age? Or is it kind of cool? And I think we're navigating adulthood really I feel like just starting to become an adult now, in my sort of late 30s. I'm starting to reconcile like who I am.
How do you balance that then with wanting to challenge yourself and do something different,
yeah.
right? Because if you know what you should be doing,
yeah,
right, like then how do you figure out like actually what your artist self wants to do?
I think part of the key for that is, and this is something we've only just figured out, I think, or in the process of figuring out, is that this isn't going to be our last record. In the past, it's often felt like the record we're working on, you leave it all on the floor, it might well be the last record you make.
Why?
Just because, I don't know why. I think it's just like you have to put everything, you get so obsessive, or certainly I do, get so obsessive with the thing in front of you that nothing else matters. I can't even listen to other records when we're making a record. But this time, I think with a bit more space from the last one, because we were on a cycle of making records and touring them every 3 years. We did 4 in, what's the math? 12 years. I'm not the counter. Maybe the words guy sometimes, not the numbers guy. We did 4 records in 12 years, and it was bosh, bosh, bosh. And actually each one was a reaction to the one before. And particularly Wilder Mind was in reaction to Babel, which did way better than any of us ever expected or were ready for. And then Delta we made in reaction to Wilder Mind.
What do you mean in reaction to?
Well, Wilder Mind, we were like, don't pigeonhole us, dude. With Babel, and it won the Grammy, and we were just like, what is going on here? Are we now going to be known as this for the rest of our lives? Like, we feel like our music taste is more expansive than just this. Like, let's just play electric instruments, because that's what we want to do, and that's the music we're listening to right now. And so we made Wilder Mind kind of in reaction to Babel. And then Delta, we were like, right, we weren't done with that. We're pushing on from arenas to stadiums. Like, let's go really epic and expansive in reaction to like where Wilder Mind left off. Then we had like 4 years, right? Wynn left the band. We had COVID. And then we were in a place where like we were starting again, and we can do whatever we want, and we don't have to do any of it. It's not out of a necessity. And that offered us an opportunity, I think, creatively, where we were like, let's just do exactly what we want to do right now.
How freeing is that?
And let's not worry about that. Like, let's plan for a record after and a record after. So let's not just think like, we've got to all cram it all onto this one record. Let's let this record be what it is artistically. And we had some wonderful help. And that includes like picking the collaborators who come in.
Dave Cobb's incredible.
Dave Cobb is like a goat. So he came in, helped us creatively. We all had a vision for what this record should be. Then we kept writing songs. And that actually helped us know that what we had with Rushmere was special and unique and a body of work in itself, because we still believe in albums. But then we've been writing songs since. I mean, we've been writing songs for 2 years straight. We've got like 60 of the motherfuckers now.
Really?
And so now it's just organizing and timing and figuring out. And yeah, we're really excited about what's to come.
Are you doing it all on your? Are you signed? No, yeah, you're with Glassnote still. That's right.
Yeah. Well,
but you can still do it in a way that's like, dude, you have financial freedom, right? Like you have.
Well, we
songs,
also have creative freedom because we own our records. They're ours, and we license them. We have wonderful partners around the world. It's amazing. But we feel like always it's been important to us to have independence of creative spirit and not be going out because we have to, or because we owe someone money, or because we're like fulfilling a contractual commitment.
Did you have that from the very beginning?
Yeah.
Can you explain how and why you were able to set that up?
We just didn't take the cash up front.
We also had a friend of ours from high school. His dad was a music lawyer.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Super lucky. And he was like, I'm going to take you guys under my wing.
He said, if you don't let me be your lawyer, I'm going to break your kneecaps. That's what he said.
Yeah.
So what records do
My
you...
version's a bit soft.
Yeah.
At this time, what records do you have done?
None.
EPs.
No,
I think it was before, innit?
What song? You had no songs?
Well, it was before we'd started the band.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was just like, I want to make sure you guys, if you're going to go into this crazy industry, he'd seen some pretty bad stuff happen, and it still happens. Like, I mean, I'm not going to call them out, but there's like, there's artists, you see it, you see people take stands at these award shows. I think, it was Chapel this year, right? And she was on stage talking about it, and people have tricky experiences, and we're lucky that when at the beginning you referred to us as the London indie trio. Indie to us is really the independent side of our spirit. Like, we are fortunate that we get to make the decisions that we want to make, and no one's telling us what to do, for better or worse. And we're talking a lot creatively right now about what records that makes, but also it affects how we tour and when we do stuff. And like, we're just not on anyone else's dime. We don't owe anyone anything.
And it's been like that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So like when Glassnote finds you, what records do you have then?
We were in the process of making Sigh No More.
Yeah, we'd released a couple of
EPs.
500 copy EPs, limited release EPs.
What songs are on them?
Little Iron Man was on one of them. Cave was on one of them. Cave in the Open Sea.
Banjolin.
Okay, so a couple timeless records.
White Blank Page.
Yeah.
Was on it. Yeah, we had a collection of songs that became Sigh No More and a couple EPs.
Yeah,
and then we played a London show, and Daniel Glass came and really helped us imagine where it could go. And along the way, we say we don't owe anyone anything. In a technical term, that's true.
Yeah.
But like, Marcus Drabs came in and said, look, I've been listening to your demos, and I was in the gym, and I didn't get it to start with. And then I was in the gym and I was listening to it, and it was like 4 on the floor, and he's German, right? So he like understands techno. And he was like, I fully believe that Little Iron Man and The Cave should be on the radio next to Jay-Z. And we were like, you're tripping. Like, we're this little folk, we're playing in bars in London. He was like, no, I can totally hear it. So he helped us. And Daniel did the same on the records. So Louis Bloom in the UK with Island Records did the same. They were like, look, we can imagine where this can go, and we want it. But it's always felt like a partnership to us. It wasn't like some big fat cat came in, wrote us a check, and then that meant we owed them for the rest of the time, and they owned our records. They owned us, which is what happens, right? I think less and less. I think the licensing model has become much more common since we did it, but not because of us, but since we decided to go that route. Now in the industry, I think it's fairly common. But
yeah, there were a couple like back then in 2012, like in specifically, I remember Macklemore was doing that, that kind of stayed independent, and then like would kind of do the same thing, maybe license it, or have like the radio promo team working on his behalf, type deal, like partnerships. But then it became really not common. And then now, to your point, like it is kind of coming back again.
Yeah,
I remember outside of the records, we worked with this wonderful person called Lucy Dickens, and it was our first time playing Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. It's like a 2,000 cap theatre, and she came up with the suggestion that we could just put that show on ourselves, and it opened our eyes up to this thought that like on gigs we had the opportunity to go out and do stuff, and then we went and I think we've curated and put on like 30 odd festivals called Gentlemen of the Road stopovers, where we've gone out and been able to curate lineups of all of our favorite music, go into towns and just stand up a festival. And it's the same mindset of like, you don't have to just walk the path. Like you can totally go off, you can veer off, you know, and there's a legacy of this type of behavior that goes back to Pearl Jam and the Grateful Dead. And, you know, we love the like precedent.
Can you tell me why you went to Dave Cobb for this album? Why'd you go to a country music guy?
I don't think he would like that.
No, he's
sorry.
We had known what he'd done with like Brandy Carlisle very well.
Self-titled too.
And those aren't like those Brandy records that he made aren't country records to me. There's Americana. Obviously, what he's done with Sturgill and what he's done with Chris Stapleton is more in that lane. But it's like alt country to me. It's not straight up shiny, which I happen to love, country. Like the guy's the biggest Beatles fan I've ever met in my life, and I've met a lot of them. And I would count myself as one. He is encyclopedic on his knowledge of the history of British bands, and hasn't worked with many British bands at all. And so he actually came to the UK on the first recording session we did at my place. I've got a little studio, and he came, and it was the first time he's recorded in the UK, I think.
Might have been the first time we've slept without air conditioning.
Yeah, he wasn't happy about that. Like that. Yeah. He wasn't thrilled about that because it was unseasonably warm as well. But yeah, he had a vision as well, a bit like Drabs did on the first record, where he was like, I want to hear your band with the curtain pulled back. I want to hear what it's like when the three of you play acoustic instruments in a room together, because I haven't heard that for a while. And he's like, I actually really have wanted to make a Mumford Sons record for a while, and here's why. I want to hear your kick drum through my Beatles desk. And I want to hear your voice like right up. I don't want to hear any tricks. I don't want to hear any like overproduced, like thousands of pedals on electric guitars. I want to hear an acoustic guitar and a kick drum and a double bass, and you guys like singing properly together. And strip it all back and don't do any of the tricks. You don't need the toy box. Let's just hear the band as they are right now. And we were stoked by that. That lined up perfectly with the songs that we'd written, of which there were a handful. And then we wrote more as we went. And we recorded with him in Devon, and then we moved to Nashville to his room at RCA, which was actually, funnily enough, like too big and too shiny. And we didn't get a huge amount from our time at RCA, even though it's like one of the legendary music studios. We ended up back at his house in Savannah, Georgia.
Wait, really?
Which is where he's built a studio, and we recorded most of the record in there. And that felt just right for the songs that we'd written.
So, okay, this album in particular, because I am interested, like it sounded like you like did a bunch of songs and then kind of put this album together, but the meaning of this album is rather deep, and it is connected to your origins, right? It is a pond. Rushmere? Is that wrong?
I wouldn't call that the meaning of the album. I think it felt like a good summary of some of the feelings we had, which were like, who are we at the end of the day when you strip everything back? Where did we come from and where are we going? And Rushmere felt like the right kind of sort of palette to paint on for this record.
After the fact. Like we named the album once we had the album.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a mood board with Rushmere and songs being written for that.
Yeah. Totally.
You know.
No, but you realize like
that
it's connected to something like.
It's like when people meet their kid. Sometimes people have a name before a kid's born, and sometimes kids born, they're like, oh, it's a Charlie or whatever. You know, like it happens both ways.
I have a question. After your solo album and before Rushmere, was the plan to always get back together, or was there a moment when you guys were like, we don't know the future of this band anymore?
Coming in hot.
Yeah, lovely question.
Well, I'm just,
yeah, great question.
No, I think we all hoped, but there was no committed timeline at all. And I think we were really stoked when Marcus toured self-titled, I remember going out, I think it was Kansas City was the first time I came and checked in.
Was it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you called me and were like, you gotta come.
And I was like, Ted, this show's amazing, and vibes are high, and we were like, let's go. And I think at one point we thought we were going to surprise Marcus in Nashville, but I think we had to coordinate. So we went to Nashville, and that was the first time
The Ryman.
at the Ryman. The first time the three of us had just gone out on stage. And it was definitely a surprise for the people in the audience. And it was like, wow, that was fun. That was really fun. And that was before we had songs. That was really just more like, it's fun to sing together again. So yeah, it's a weird one. Like, I think people over emphasize like how much intentionality there is. Some of this stuff just flows. It's quite instinctive. Like friendships. It's like, how much do you really think about your selection of your things that you're doing every day? And I think there was definitely a general moment where we leant in and said, let's go and make a record. But the friendships are so old and they run so deep that that never went away. Like that never turned off. And we just sort of dialed up the bandness of our friendship again.
Yeah, and there was like three things really. There was these lads singing with me at the Ryman in Nashville, and then there was getting together in January 23 and writing some songs and that feeling great. And then we got asked to headline Austin City Limits Festival again. I think it was the third time. And we said yes to that just to see like, what's it like playing live again? And we ended up saying yes to 30 more shows, just all festivals last year. Those three things made us realize like, yes, this is definitely in our future. Yes, we really choose this. It's not choosing us. We're like actively choosing this. And yes, there's new songs to be written and made together that we believe in and we want to go out and show people. So
Was the first song you wrote for this new project Malibu?
Yeah.
In West Hollywood when you all met?
Yeah, Malibu, Where It Belongs, and Surrender probably.
Yeah.
Did you say at one point that Malibu was supposed to be like a rock song and you just toned it back?
Yeah, I messed around with the arrangement at home of like coming in hot from the top, and Dave was like, no, mate.
No.
It's got to be acoustic guitar, vocal, kick drum, right from the top.
Yeah.
And that was how he felt like the record should start. And we put it first on the album for that reason too.
What story are you telling in the song?
In Malibu,
Yeah.
you know what, it's just my least favorite thing in the entire world is when someone sits up at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, which I love, but they sit on the stool and they tell you what the song's about before you've heard it. I can't stand it. It really annoys me. So I like interpretation in songs. I like people being able to hear a song. If it makes them feel something, I feel like you've done your job as a songwriter. But like, I think you feel something before you understand it. I don't like over-explaining songs. Yeah.
I mean, is there a Christian interpret? I mean, you're talking about a spirit. Like is there
Always
a religious
talking about
side?
spirits,
Yeah.
mate, all the time. Wanging on about spirits and souls and nonstop.
I mean, do you have a relationship with religion today? And does it come through in the art that you make?
Yeah, I mean, I have a faith, yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that comes through in lots of what I write and what I do. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't, I think it comes out in different ways. It comes out in a very soulful way when I'm on my own with a guitar writing something that feels true to me. And that's certainly what Malibu is. It's like a relief to me to write a lyric like that. And then I love, there's a song called Carry On, which is a bit angry at that world as well. And I love being able to play and explore with those ideas.
How do you know you're writing a song that's true to you?
You just get the feels. It's all about the feels. When you're like, I think when you write, and for me, I'll write something and I'll come in and I'll look at their faces. And if I see what I need to see in their faces, then I know it's real. If I feel like they think I'm faking it, even if I'm not faking it, I haven't done my job. So
Interesting.
a lot of it is about their response, and that's why I love the magic of a band, because that's why it's greater than the sum of its parts, because they might not even have to say anything, and I'll know, because our relationships run that deep, and they know me so well, and I know them so well, that like they won't need to say anything.
I mean, it's helpful when I just openly weep, though, right?
Yeah, that's happened. That happened once on this record. Yeah,
Really? For
What song?
Doesn't matter.
a song called Monochrome, and Ted had brought in this idea on the guitar and an idea for a melody, but didn't have any words. And then a few hours later, I presented Ted with some words, but actually it ended up just being the vocal take.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no notes, which was
No
nice.
notes.
Just a few tears from Ted.
Yeah.
So it's just a relief.
Quite a lot of
wasn't it?
tears, actually. It was a relief, yeah.
So where do you go mentally in that moment? Like, are you just listening to what you made sonically over and over again? Like, what are you doing?
It really varies song by song. That one came really fast, and you're in the wild, I think, when you're writing lyrics. I mean, I don't think there's any rules. You know, I've been through different types of process with writing lyrics. Monochrome came in like an hour. Rushmere came over the course of a year,
Really?
maybe more. Yeah,
Didn't you say you had to travel to find the lyrics to that
I did.
one?
Yeah, I did it. I had to go digging. I ended up. My wife was like, kicked me out of the house. She's like, "You're driving yourself and me, by the way, insane. You've just got to go somewhere and be away from home and go and be an artist for a few days." So I went to Istanbul on my way to Jerusalem, and I sat in a cafe for 3 days and drank coffee and smoked cigars and wrote poetry like a prick. And but I've been in denial. I've been in denial for a long time about being an artist, and I just allowed myself to go and be an artist for a few days. And then the Rushmere lyric came, and I texted these lads, and then we were good to go.
But that lyric is very reminiscent of your early days.
Yeah.
Very.
I had to go very far away from them to be able to look back at them, I think. But I only realised that now, talking to you. Yeah.
Take me back to empty lawns and nowhere else to go. This started as a poem.
Yeah.
You say, come get lost in a fairground crowd where no one knows your name. There's only honest mistakes. There's no price to a wasted hour. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that lyric now. It was a fucking nightmare to get it. It took forever.
Is there any other songs in your catalog that took that long?
I Will Wait.
Really?
That was a nightmare.
Fuck off, really?
Yeah, it was a nightmare.
Most people come in here and they go like, no, the biggest song ever was this. It came in 30 seconds.
Yeah, Little Iron Man came really fast.
Really?
Yeah, Cave was over a matter of weeks, I think. But the idea came at a sound check in Edinburgh, a place called Bannerman's. It's like 50 capacity, little vaulted venue, like the size of this room, basically. And it was one of those venues where if people came in, the condensation on the brickwork, because it was one of those old arches in the old town of Edinburgh, the condensation would like drip on your instruments.
But halfway through the gig, it would just start raining. Sweat.
And then yes, some of them, and I don't think it necessarily matches to the quality of the song. I think Noel Gallagher talks about songs like they drop from the sky, and we all know it's magic, and you got to have your hands out ready to catch them.
Or someone else will grab it.
Or Chris Martin or fucking Bono is going to catch them. That's his point. So
Totally.
So for us, it was like spending 2 years of our lives with our hands out, ready to catch songs. And it was like, do you know what? They're not in Nashville this week. They might be in Savannah. So we went to Savannah. And then at some point we were like, let's go Paris. Pharrell wants to make some songs. Let's go Paris. So we went to Paris, and Good People fell out of the sky, which we released with Pharrell. And then we've just been chasing songs around. And I hope we just continue to do that. And I hope that we don't like fold our arms once we go on tour. Because a lot of the time in the past we've said like, okay, we're on tour, we're putting down our creative hat. Now we're just like performing. And
keep
actually
it going.
Try and keep it going, yeah.
So what do you learn from all these collaborations? I mean, Pharrell, but then also you did a bunch of collaborations on your solo album. A lot of that has to at least shape the creative identity that you're at now, or at least the desire to work with more people.
The Pharrell sessions so far have been incredibly enlightening because he is an absolute force of nature.
So you're doing a bunch of sessions.
Oh, we've been working with him on and off. This is all part of the 2-year process. It's all kind of anyone who would take some time and make music with us, we're kind of in a yes mode, and it's been great working with him, like we said, that song "Good People's" come out of it, but we're still experimenting, and his process is just completely fresh and different to how we've experienced things before, and same with Dave and Aaron and other people. It's just like it's similar to the geographical shift up, like when you a song can be kind of anywhere geographically, but also when you're working in a different balance of creative energy and power in a room where things are sort of shifting around, it can lead to an idea that maybe wouldn't have got dislodged if it's just the same every single time. Anyway, I like that. I could spend like an hour talking about just observing how Pharrell has his hands open for songs. It's incredible, and I know people think so highly of him, but I think that it's not even the half of it. Like he's really a creative genius.
Do you feel there's like truth to this idea that like even though like I Will Wait takes weeks to finish, like, and what about that took so long?
The lyric took a long time. Yeah.
Was it like a go travel, get away, find it, or?
It was more like there's this big block of stone in front of you and you just have to chisel at it. And it was like the chiseling, my arms were getting tired, and one of these lads would come along and chisel, and Marcus Drabs would be like, come on, here's the tools, pick them up again. I remember him sitting on the end of my bed in Paris when we were doing the vocals on that song. And it was another day where I was just like, mate, I just don't think I can do this. And he tried like the bad cop approach where he was like, come on, this is your job, And then eventually like he brought me a cup of tea. It was the softest I've ever seen him. When I woke up one morning, he brought me a cup of tea, sat on the end of my bed like a fucking prison guard or a nun, and sat on the end of my bed and was like, today might be the day. Here's a cup of tea. Let's go and try it again. And we did, and we got it in the end, yeah.
I don't think there's a better or worse,
midwifery,
though. Like I don't think the argument is faster's better.
Yeah.
Like we're not kind of adverse or afraid of going through the process and the pain. And actually, I would probably argue that the cup of tea for Marcus Drabs gives a little bit more confidence when Istanbul was calling for Rushmere to just keep going, stay on the path, and the song will get there.
What were you chipping away at though? Like what did you have? Like you just had instrumental and you just couldn't figure out the lyric, or?
Yeah, or like certain turns in the lyric that just didn't sit right until they did. And it just takes work.
Totally.
Songwriting is it should be the hardest work you do. Performing should be easier because you've done the hard bit. And I remember having this conversation with Johnny Dickens, his manager, and he was like, we'd said at some point, like, oh yeah, we're going to the studio, we're going to go have fun. He's like, fun? Shouldn't be fun. It should be really hard work until you're done. And then it's fun. But it's like when you're in there, it's like the output should be difficult to get to. If it was like just easy, then A, anyone could do it to any kind of level. And B, you're probably not mining real emotionally connective stuff. Like it should be some sort of rending at points. Not every song has to be like heartbreak. And I believe in songs that are just chill. Like, L.O.L.A. Lola was a lyric that we referenced on this album, on Rushmere, because there were points where Dave was like, don't overthink it. There's a first thought there that's precious and that has value. Don't belabor it. So there's times where you just go, and that's why they're all different, But there's also times when you want to be like, this should be a bit painful to get to the real thing,
By the way, you reference a guy who's Adele's manager, and Adele has told us that like she will literally go to the studio until she has literally nothing else to say. She will show up there until she is emotionally dry and nothing else comes out.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And Johnny is Lucy Dickens' brother, so this is part of the family, the great family, the great Dickens family. But it was really helpful advice at that point, actually, when we were just starting writing again. It's like it shouldn't be easy. It should be hard work.
How does it change just being the three of you? Does anything change?
Yeah, I think it does. The balance, with four people, it's majority rules, I guess, a bit more seamlessly.
Interesting.
Whereas with three, I think we've had to work harder to, and I don't want to misquote something that Marcus said a couple of months ago, but it was like we need to be better at finding more consensus. It isn't okay for one person just to tap out when there's only three of you. Like when we've learned that you have to kind of continue finding the common ground. Whereas I think the more people that you add to that collaboration, the more it's okay to for someone to not necessarily get what they want.
Be carried by a greater number.
Yeah. So as you get into millions and millions of people, there's always going to be someone who's upset. But like with three, I think that's actually very satisfying. I think we're finding a groove with it that's like you have to employ a bit more reason, make your arguments a bit stronger, whether that's creatively or otherwise.
Interesting.
And you have to know your mind a bit more, I think. That's what I've noticed, I think, with being a three.
Is that confidence? What is that?
I think it's like you have to. I think there's an intentionality to knowing what you and spending time and energy figuring out what you really think, rather than being able to go with the flow more. It's just that everything's a little more exposed because there's only three of us to discuss it.
We were literally talking about this over lunch.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Really?
But it's cool. I think that that certainly led to a point here where we've all been really honest with each other. There's less hiding to be done because it's a smaller crowd.
But it creates more vulnerable music, right?
Right now, feels like being a new band, feels like a first record, actually. It feels most similar to when we were setting up Sigh No More. Because of the time you have to prepare it. Like we wrote Sigh No More for about 2 years before we released it. We started the band in 2007. We released the first record in 2009. This kind of feels similar in that way. And there's just an intentionality to our choices at the moment. Our shows, our artwork, our songs on the records, our recordings themselves, the way we're doing our business, that it feels like we've had the time and space that we've needed while we were away to come back with an intentionality that feels similar to when we first started.
Isn't that like what you kind of like chase after for?
Yeah.
Like that's
It feels like a relief, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like any of us right now are just like in the grind. We're not just on the treadmill banging another one out.
No, you're doing something that like is attached to like, I don't know. Like when I was like young, there's like confidence and naivete and like really blind confidence and like this like you don't understand cause and effect. Like you have no idea. Like you're not jaded by anything. You just fucking do because your gut and your heart tells you to do. You don't understand what that means really.
That's what it feels like.
That's sick.
Right now.
Yeah. And I think it's unusual to get that at our point in a career.
It's all I want again.
Join us.
It's
No, it is unusual.
It is. I think it's an opportunity for us to begin again in a way that feels really beautiful and quite vulnerable and a bit scary in all the ways that it should. You know, there's like we haven't allowed ourselves. We put a bunch of tickets on sale today. And the truth is we didn't know, honestly. We had some people around us who felt like they knew, but we just didn't know how it would go. It's gone really well. And we've managed our expectations and we've been away for a while. So it takes a minute to reintroduce yourself to even to your core audience, let alone people outside of that who might hear your music for the first time. And we're seeing at shows, this is a whole new generation of people listening to our music, which is dope. They were too young to buy tickets last time we toured. And
by the way, Americana is cooler than it's ever been, dude. Since probably like when you guys were first fucking killing it. Like,
and that's like massively exciting and quite scary at the same time. And we've had to approach this, the reestablishment of our band from inside out with some humility, because we're not. I mean, yes, we went back and headlined ACL last year, so we're not saying that like new bands get to do that. That's a massive privilege, I think. But we felt like we had to approach this as a reintroduction, even just to our core audience, and not come in like too swaggy, because we got work to do, you know, catching people up to where we're at creatively. And I think we've got a roadmap now for the next couple of years of how to bring people to where we're at, because you're always ahead of your audience by a couple of years. And creatively and song-wise, like we're quite ahead now, and we've got to catch people up, and you've got to be patient with that and a bit humble with that, and not just expect people to just listen to your music straight away.
But it's an interesting field you're playing in today compared to before. Like, right? TikTok, social media, I mean, DSPs, like it's a total, like, you know, where are the radio stations to go and visit and the radio lounges to perform at or whatever? It's like, you know, it's a totally different space and world.
I think it is and it isn't. I think this tour that we're on right now, the tour before the tour,
The pre-tour.
yeah, has been a bit of a reminder that some stuff is kind of just
The same.
the same. Like people, the platforms have shifted around, some of the habits and like how people consume stuff has shifted, but there's a lot of like humanity that's like bedrocking. And so I think before we went out there and actually started looking people in the eye and engaging and having our music being played live, that kind of gave us quite a lot of anxiety. Like this idea that like everything's shifted and like where are those crutches of traditional radio and TV and stuff like that? And is anyone even paying attention to anything anymore? You know, it's like, but I think it's okay. Like we just kind of you just go with it, and it'll continue to change. It's not like it's shifted and now this is it. It's just going to keep shifting.
And by the way, like great art always finds its way to the people who need it. So it's like,
And I think our band is never going to change in that, like we're best when we just get to play live.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've been hunkered down for a couple of years doing the work, and now we get to go play live. And it all feels like the presentation of music feels more democratized than it's ever been.
I agree.
And so you rely less on favors and gatekeepers and like, you know, power plays and all that shit,
That's true.
which we never really loved in the first place. I mean, we certainly benefited from some of that, but like the idea now that it's just people's, from the moment you step out in any kind of way, it's just theirs. And I've always believed that with records. Like once we've made a record and we've signed off on the masters and we've played it to the people we need to play it to, I never listen to it ever again. And I never have once. And that to me is considered like other people's music from
Really?
there on out. Yeah. I've never listened back to one of our records. I wouldn't. And if it plays in a bar, I try and leave. But I sort of feel like it's now not ours, and we give it to people. And the idea that that's like less gatekeepered than it used to be and more democratized, I think it benefits our band and the vibe we have. Because like, who cares about what level of success it gets to? Like, that's probably the nature of our band, is to like give it over to people and then for them to sing it back to us when we go and play shows. And we'll just keep saying yes to shows for the rest of our lives. And that's dope to me.
Who do you make music for? You or?
Yeah, you make it for
everybody
yourself,
else?
but the recordings are just a snapshot of a moment in time. And the more you play, of course, you play the songs every night, you know? So it's not like I reject those songs, but the recordings themselves, if I sat down and listened to Sign No More start to finish now, I'd just have notes. I wouldn't get joy from that experience. I just have a ton of notes. What's the point in that? And also, by the way, I'm playing half those songs every night on stage anyway, and they change massively. Like I heard one of them in a bar recently, and I was like, shit, that's fast. Because we've slowed it down by 15 BPM over the last 15 years, you know?
Do songs take new meaning to you?
They do, yeah.
Over time?
Yeah, definitely. Which is fun. And that's why I believe in interpretation of songs. Like it'll make you feel something totally different now to how it did when you were 19 when you wrote it.
Does it ever get old hearing like the audience scream back a lyric like, I really fucked it up this time?
No, mate, it's the greatest feeling in the world. What are you talking about?
Collective catharsis.
And it started happening now with these new songs, just on this little tour before the tour, that we warm-up shows effectively. Like when they sing back Honest Mistakes in Rushmere, like I'd imagined maybe they would when we were mixing that song. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if people sang that line back at us? I hadn't thought about it before then. Don't think about it when you're writing it. And now they're doing it. It's like a drug.
Yeah, it's addictive.
There's nothing else like it in the whole world. It's amazing.
Well, you were talking about your core audience. Do you ever feel the need to include banjo? Because when you put out Rushmere, the comments were like, banjo's back, banjo's back. The boys brought back the banjo.
There was actually banjo on Delta. But I think we're kind of like quite agnostic about what tools to use. And banjo is a great tool in the tool shed. And lots of people are using it again. You know, it's interesting. Like I hear it all the time now, and it's great because it's just got like a very percussive, rhythmical, tonal. I think maybe it gets a bit overstated, like how important it is. If it wasn't that, it could have been an arpeggiator. It could have been a hi-hat. We don't have a drummer.
I like that we don't have to use. I mean, I've started as a drummer, so drums are my favorite instrument in the world, and most of our big songs don't use drums.
So interesting.
I think because of the percussive nature of the core instruments that we play, with a kick drum and a tambourine, like I said, like frequency-wise, you're covered. You add a kit. Sometimes we've found that you add a kit to those acoustic percussive instruments, and it all gets too cluttered and too hectic. Like we really had to carve out a song like Guiding Light that had acoustic guitar, keys, bass, banjo, and drum kit. It was a real like puzzle getting all those to sit together. And we found that even songs like Below My Feet, which was on the second record, we tried full kit on it, but it just didn't quite work. And so, but to answer your original question, no, we don't look at the audience and say, do you know what they need? They need a bit of banjo. No, we don't do that. We do it when we feel like it'll elevate the song. And Malibu, the end of Malibu, there's an abandon that you can access quicker with a banjo and in a more naturalistic way for our instrumentation on that particular song that asked for the banjo and not an arpeggiator or a hi-hat or another sound that was either more electronic or more percussive. It was like banjo was exactly the right. I played that actually on that song.
How do you know?
I would sorry, just to add, but I think there's a bit of a misconception of the concept of they as like a singular fan base as well. You know, these are individuals with their own journey of our music, and they like people have found us through different records. We even on these shows we're playing right now, like some people found out about Mumford Sons on Wild of Mind, and it's their favorite album. So it's not like there's like a Mumford & Sons fan archetype that is like looks a certain way, likes us to do a certain thing. We're actually finding there's quite a lot of breadth of influence and the types of music. Like we're kind of, it comes at it from lots of different angles, and I think understanding that, and that's why we get so humbled by the volume of people that want to come to our shows, because those are all individual people's lives that all do completely different jobs from each other or have different interests and different responsibilities, and they're turning up to come to these moments, these gigs, and it's like crazy if you like process that. It's not just as simple as like, oh, they're the fans, we're the band. You know, it's a beautiful thing to think about diversity of the audience in that way, you know.
How do you know when something needs a banjo?
I think it's like, okay, we want a bit of pace, we want a bit of abandon, but we don't want to overclutter the sound. It's already quite a full sound.
Does being in love change the way you make music at all?
No, I mean, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it changes the nature of your songwriting and the things that you're writing about in that moment. Heartbreak songs are definitely easier to write than love songs.
Parenting? Shift anything?
I haven't noticed that, but I'm sure it's all just like passive. I'm sure it's all just goes into the meat.
Subconscious, yeah, it's there.
Yeah,
We're quite romantic people. So, like in all sense of the word, romantic. You know.
I mean, like your story's crazy. Like you really met Carey like at camp, and then you were pen pals. You would fax each other.
Yeah.
And then you just drifted apart for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then how did you drift back?
And we got back together. Yeah.
That's great. That's a movie.
Yeah, I think it sounds like quite a cheesy movie to me.
Have you seen Hallmark?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Netflix?
it's wild. It's been cool. It's a cool story.
How did you
I
meet?
like it, obviously.
Yeah, you lived it. How'd you meet again?
Email.
Just,
We emailed each other.
just out of the blue, you're just like,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
I was staying at a friend's house here in Los Angeles, and I wrote to her out of the blue because we hadn't spoken for a couple of years. She'd come to a Laura Marling show that we supported Laura at, and she was like, Mumford, oh yeah. She thought it was a bit shouty. It was quite shouty. And she slipped a note to my tour manager, but I didn't see her. And then I think it had her email on it, and then I wrote to her, and that was a couple of years later. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's sweet.
It's like really special. Like when things like that happen, you know it's meant. You know what I'm saying? Like the universe has lined all those things up for a reason.
Yeah, I have belief in that. Yeah.
Really special. Damn. Thanks for hanging out, guys.
Thank you for
It's
having
been
us.
great.
This
Thank
has been
you.
a good conversation.
Thoughtful questions. Yeah.
What are we going to do for the next 5 hours?
I mean,
It's all the pizza, surely.
you want some coffee?
Yeah.
Want some snacks? Yeah. By the way, you have a cider company, yeah? You were
Ted's-
making cider,
Ted's-
right?
Ted's-
yeah.
You got any cider?
I should have bought you some.
Yeah, what the fuck?
I'm really sorry. Next time
It's okay.
I'll bring you.
You fucked
lashings
up your
of
whole
cider.
marketing strategy.
Yeah.
This is it. This
This is your moment
this-
right
you
now.
changed it.
We teed this up for you.
I'm
So
sorry, yeah,
nothing.
thank
They've got,
you,
they've got
man.
really good distribution.
Yeah, right.
Have you heard of Amazon? Also, I love that your pre-tour is like you're playing the Palladium tomorrow, but also didn't you show up to Hotel Cafe yesterday or something?
We did. It was the first venue ever played in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Okay,
We played
so
there last night.
this whole thing is like very much going back to the beginning. Whether like
Our plan to just play in smaller rooms before we go out and play bigger rooms later in the year was all about reconnecting and warming up.
Mm.
You know, we haven't done these new songs live, and starting in an intimate space felt like the right place for us.
is that actually how you rehearse, or do you get together?
Because I think
previous-
we're rubbish at rehearsing. We get really impatient with it. And so we just like, okay, that'll do. Let's go and play a gig. And we knew that about ourselves. And so we booked this tour of small venues in order to make our mistakes on a smaller canvas.
it's interesting because
But they've been like kind of magical, honestly. Like they're the kind of venues where you can unplug completely and play. We played Sydney Opera House on Monday. What day is it today?
it's
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's the kind of place where it's a great sounding room. So you just can unplug and play acoustically, which we
Also
love to do.
Stunning
It was amazing.
on the
Yeah.
harbor. Holy
Yeah,
shit!
it's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
But also like there is something there of like, God, like wait, why the fuck did I just lose my thought? Which is crazy. It never happens to me.
Small
Just-
venues,
No, we're-
reconnecting, not rehearsing. Oh, I
That-
think a gig is worth 5 rehearsals.
But your baseline musicianship is that fucking good, where you can do something once. No, but there is something special there. That like,
Or just
you
a
can-
willingness to not be perfect.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
fuck it up as you
More
go,
that,
but to the
yeah.
point where the audience doesn't know.
I
there's
think
a
they
skill
do. I think they're in on the
Really?
joke. Yeah.
Did you guys mess up a lot on these
Oh
shows?
yeah, I really fucked it up in Sydney. I forgot the words to "Love with a Light," which isn't the first time that's happened, and played an impromptu drum solo,
It was amazing.
which was a disgrace. And they were totally in on the joke. And maybe it's part of the charm.
Yeah.
That's the argument.
Sometimes we sail a bit close to the wind. Like yesterday at Hotel Cafe, we were kind of busy during the day, and we didn't. Someone asked whether we might want a sound check, and we're like, "Nah, we'll be fine." We turned up and we just started playing, and like, I guess it's been a minute since we actually haven't sound checked at all. It was a bunch of house gear, and we just started playing to a room full of people. It was like, oh, we probably should have spent like 1 minute.
The first night you played on the piano,
Listen.
you hadn't played. It wasn't a real upright piano. He played it. He's like, ooh. Like, oh yeah, this is why we sound check. Yeah.
But there's confidence there, though. Like you have to be confident to even like keep going.
Or
To commit.
naivety. It's both sides of the same coin.
Optimism.
Doesn't
We are
require a
confident.
lot. You know, we don't need backup dancers or backing track.
You don't need pyro.
Yet.
I love pyro. You don't need it to be able to do something musical that's probably vaguely representative of a part of our band. But it's going to be fun playing bigger shows again.
Really cool.
Yeah.
By the way, listen to Rushmere. It's all waiting for you on Amazon Music. There's a link below. Go.
We talk about going back to the beginning with this album. Like, if you guys walked on stage in like Waistcoats, would you feel like you're playing a character of yourself at this point?
Yeah, probably. Well, I would, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It was like a 6-month period of your life where you're dressing a certain way, then becomes the thing that goes before you for the rest of your life. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
It doesn't piss me off. It's just kind of funny to me.
And then the Hopeless Wanderer video, that's when you guys just like mocked yourselves, right? With, like,
Yeah, we
Jason
did. We were like,
Sudeikis.
fuck it. If everyone else is talking about this and like Liam Gallagher's saying we look like Amish people, wicked. Like, that's great, you know? And yeah, let's let Sam Jones and the Jasons and Ed and Will like have at it. They
The
can
video
just
is
go
so
for it.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are all of your waistcoats?
In a big pile somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know.
You should sell them.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Let's do a big.
I'll help you.
Let's do a big auction. Yeah.
Yeah, for charity would be good, you know?
Yeah. I don't know where they are. Yeah.
My last question I've always wondered is, why did you guys go with Mumford and Sons? Like, is it your band with everyone
When you
else?
say you've always wondered that, how often are you coming back to that question?
You've had
It's
like 4
Well,
hours to
I've
ask that
thought about it.
question. You haven't asked it, so
Is there a fraternal
I saved
relationship?
the worst question for last. You know?
to be fair, it is a shit question.
I just remember the pub that we were having this conversation in when we were actually deciding it. It was just Putney Bridge.
I remember that.
The north side of the pub in Putney Bridge. And we had used the name because in the early days, Marcus had gathered a collection of songs and was gathering various combinations. And actually, I think at one point it was Merry Men, and it kind of we had played a few shows as Mumford Sons, and then we're like, should we just go and have a drink and talk about this for a minute? So we went and talked. So I think we talked about like maybe 15 or 20 different, even worse band names, and we were like,
Sun Never Sets on the Cool Kids is my favorite.
we're like, maybe we should just stick with it. And you know, part of what made us feel comfortable with sticking with it was at that point we could see about 2 weeks into our future, and no one thought that we were going to be in Los Angeles
I
having
genuinely
this
remember
conversation.
a moment in that chat where it's like, it would only really be a problem if like you went international or if you played shows to like more than 100 people. So it's probably not really going to be a thing. We're like, yeah, let's just go with it.
The idea of like, I will wait by the sun never sets on the cool kids on 95.5
Yeah,
PLJ.
sick.
Love it.
I don't know.
Oh man.
Mumford and Sons is great. You know. I mean, you have a cool name. You really do.
Well, it was at a time when there were lots of bands like Johnny Flynn and the Sussex Wit, or all these bands that had like
Vincent,
a person's
Vincent
name.
and the Villains.
Yeah, person's name and the band name. Or it was like the Kooks, the Zootons, the Strokes. There was lots of those. And we were like, well, what feels a bit more us and a bit more British than that? Calling it something with a family name, like a family business, felt representative of how we were
It's great.
thinking about doing our business at the time. So, and it was like, no one else had the name. So we did it.
It also gives like Americana, it gives folk. It very much leans into the essence of the band. It's good.
Cool. I'm
It
glad you
worked.
approved.
Yeah, no,
Fine.
like, yeah, no, you've been
Yeah.
waiting for this.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
a
We're
relief.
obviously at peace with it.
yeah.
Just put it on a big tour poster, so we're good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm genuinely interested. Last question. How do you guys define success today? Like, what is it?
Tickets.
Is that it?
Tickets for me.
Yeah.
If people are willing to part with their time as well as their money and their energy to come and see us, that to me is the ball game.
Time is the most valuable
Because,
asset.
you know, you see lots of artists that stream unbelievably well and then can't sell tickets, you know, and like with no shade, like all the love, it's hard to sell tickets. It's hard to get to a point of trust with your audience where they're willing to set aside time, money, and energy to come see play. And there's a lot of shows. I mean, this is like the live music boom generationally. And so if people are willing to come see our band play, that to me is success.
You guys are amazing. Thanks for taking your time and energy.
Pleasure.
Thanks for hanging out. You good?
The song Caroline is fantastic.
Yeah,
It's
I like
so
that
good.
one.
Love it.
That's fun.
Fantastic
Top time
album.
Thanks, man.
Rushmere is waiting for you. Listen to it. Link below. Mumford and Sons, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.